Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today to our live debate or fight. We will see how it goes. I have four amazing gentlemen fighting today. Jeff Fried from VA Insight, Mikael Svenson from PuzzlePart, Matthew McDermott from Aptillon, and Christian Buckley from CollabTalk. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hello.
Morning,
Agnes. How are you today?
Good.
It's a beautiful day here in Boston, and I'm excited to fight with all of my friends here.
I am very glad.
All right.
Okay, so first of all, I think most of the attendees know who you are, but in just one sentence or two, could you introduce yourself? And what I am really curious about now is what you have been working on recently. And I know most of you are working on some super awesome things. And I just really would like to everyone know about everything. So please let us know.
All right, I'll start. My name is Matt McDermott. I'm a consultant and trainer with Aptillon, and I do Office 365 and SharePoint implementations for my customers. What Agnes knows is that what I've been working on is a full course for hybrid that includes how to implement hybrid search with SharePoint on-prem and Office 365. And in fact, my first class starts tomorrow, and I'm teaching for the European time zone. So I've been shifting my sleep schedule over the course of the last few days by 2 hours every night, because the course is going to start for me at 3:30 in the morning, Austin time, and go until 10:30 in the morning, Austin time. So I'm going to be getting up at 2:30 every morning for the next couple of days. And the thing is, the coffee pot keeps waking up the dog, and the dog thinks it's time to go outside and then come in and eat at 3 o'clock in the morning. So she's really confused right now.
So you are jet lagged in your own home?
I'm jet lagged without the benefit of travel. That's right, in my own home. So I have Saturday and Sunday to recover before we get back to work on Monday.
Sounds good. Thank you, Matt. Jeff, do you want to disagree with anything?
Well, I promised I would disagree with everything Matt said, but I'll leave him in suspense so that we can have what we call our cage fight between two giant sloths. I'm Jeff Fried. I'm the CTO of VA Insight, and I've been doing search for a long time. Long time. And I still love it. So I'm currently schizophrenic. I'm working very actively on sort of bleeding edge cognitive search applications, hooking in things from, in particular, the Azure and Google cognitive APIs to improve the search experience and provide new ways of dealing with search, things like bots and speech rec. And at the same time, I'm trying to help our customers with really basic blocking and tackling, because so many people are at a relatively low level of maturity with search and just need to take the next step and the next step.
Thank you, Jeff. Christian?
Yeah, hello, and this is Christian Buckley. I'm with CollabTalk, so we are an independent research and technical marketing services company. Of course, I've been in the SharePoint space since 2005, and I always bring this up. Like Jeff might say that he remembers, but he doesn't. But I was part of Microsoft Managed Solutions when I was there at Microsoft when we acquired Jeff's company, and Fast Search and all that stuff happened. And I'm trying to remember, what year was that, Jeff?
That was 2008. So
yeah,
I think you're telling me that I don't remember things. Matt has been emphasizing how long I've been in this field and how old I really am. So there's a theme here.
Yeah, I agreed. So I'm going to agree with you on that point here. I also agree about the schizophrenia. So
okay.
Anyway, you know, it's my background is a little bit different. While I'm on I started my career as a business analyst and got into knowledge management in the early to mid 1990s. What I'm amazed is as we look at all of the various collaboration solutions that are out there, I talk a lot about end user experience and really talk a lot with CXOs about collaboration and productivity solutions, is how many of the issues that organizations have come down to that search experience. If you're putting your knowledge in, if you're capturing things or get all this data that's in there, and yet we're not able to get that data, that information back out, then you're going to not be as productive, not be as innovative. And so I write and talk with customers a lot about that topic. So interested in digging into today's topic.
Sounds good. Thank you, Christian. Mikael.
Yeah, I guess I'm last. So my name is Mikael Svenson. I'm the CTO at PuzzlePart, which is a Norwegian company doing consulting on Office 365. And I guess I'm doing a lot of architect stuff and advisor stuff, but right now I'm actually doing a lot of dev. And nothing with search. So I'm doing an Office add-in to provision a Word document, a big report, over to modern pages and the size structure with one customer. And I'm doing a JavaScript and HTML canvas image manipulation software thing in SharePoint Framework for one customer. And I'm doing Azure Functions and Flow and groups provisioning with PnP for a third customer. So I'm heavily into development these days. But I guess I'm here because I've done a lot of search. Not as long as Jeff, because I'm not as old as Jeff. But I've been doing search for, well, in different things since around 2000 when I stopped working with computer games. So that's 17 years actually. Wow. I'm getting old as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And for those who maybe don't know me, my name is Agnes Molnar. I am from Search Explained, and what I do is trainings and consultancy and workshops on search. And I really like talking to you guys about search because I know that I have my kind of own debate with each of you on different topics. So I am really looking forward to see what's going on with our debate together today. And also I will have news to share with everyone at the end of this webinar. Anyway, let's talk about some topics and questions, and let's fight about something.
It's all going to hell.
Right.
You've got us in suspense. For
that's that webinar clickbait that she just did right there. So now we can't leave.
Yeah.
Right. So my very first question, just get back to search, please. Recently, I have been working with several companies on their search and information architecture strategy. And each of them are on different maturity levels, as you said, Jeff, and therefore their needs and requirements are different too. But there is one common question I always get from my customers. And this question is why we need a search strategy in our organization, why a separate strategy for search is needed. So the question to you is why? What do you think about it?
Well, I'll jump in because this is a point that I run into all the time. And I've actually started teaching a information management strategy class largely because I was frustrated that my customers weren't set up to succeed without it. So there are three things. The first is that you have a strategy, whether you know it or not. I mean, all companies have some strategy. Wandering around aimlessly is a strategy. Maybe not a successful strategy, but you have one. So now it's about whether you have one that's aligned to your business needs and likely to be successful. And I guess the most compelling reason is that there's a clear correlation of simply having a strategy to having success. You know, there's a company called FindWise that you should all be familiar with, I think, that's for 5 years had a longitudinal survey, And the single biggest correlate of success is having a strategy. And similarly, IDC had a long-standing study. I think they're still doing it every year. And what they call the Knowledge Quotient, they quote, like, on average, the folks that have a strategy get 5 times more out of their information management than folks that don't. So it helps.
But the part of the problem, though, is that organizations think, well, the strategy is that I bought the technology that should just do this automatically. And that's what I run into again and again and again. And we were kind of joking before we started here. It's like, well, doesn't Delve just do that? Can't I, doesn't it just work? I plug it in, it just finds that content, and it provides it when I go and search for that. And that's the barrier that it's most common that I run into, is that, no, my strategy is the technology.
Well, this is not unique to search. I know that, right. Christian, you had a whole thing about collaboration strategy. And collaboration strategy is not using Yammer or Slack. It's much more to do with the people.
Right. It's that end-to-end. It's what do you actually, right. It's, well, and I hate that we come back to this simplistic view of, okay, what are the business outcomes that you're looking to achieve with this? That helps determine what that strategy is. There's 100 right answers to how you can go and set up and architect your search. But what is going to be the best fit for the culture, the organization, and the way that they need to work?
I think there's a maturity from the user's perspective as well, that the visionaries, quote unquote, in the company. I mean, Christian, you said you talked to the CXOs. They don't necessarily feel the pain that the end users feel, because they're not the ones trying to search and find content in their organization. So when we ask them about a search strategy as a consultant, a lot of times it falls on deaf ears, because it sounds like consulting mumbo jumbo. I'm gonna charge them, I'm gonna pay. They're gonna pay me to read their watch and tell them what time it is. And I get that pushback all the time. Is we have a content problem. We don't have a search problem. And it isn't until I can get down to the business level, I can get down to the user level and get those people in front of the C-level executives to say, we can't find anything. We know where it's stored, but we can't find it. And simply moving platforms to SharePoint on-prem, to a new file server, to anything, Box, Dropbox, whatever the solution ends up being, it doesn't solve the basic findability problem.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it's all about, you need some strategy, and where do you want to put it, and how do you want to find it. I mean, it's the same thing with everything in life, right? I mean, you put certain stuff in certain drawers, in certain cabinets, you know where things are in order to find it. And if you don't have the right metadata on it, then it's kind of hard to find it, unless it's automatic.
Wait, metadata? Are you kidding me? I have to do more work when I put it here?
Well, and I think the number one reason
right.
I find people don't have a strategy is fear. They either fear that they're going to get a lot more exposure for something that's weak, or that they'll just get more work. And it doesn't need to be a 451-page strategy like the U.S. Department of Defense. It can be 3 pages. Like Gartner has a really effective 3-page template. But yeah, it takes work.
Well, and they're afraid of the fear of getting it wrong. And so, and that fear then shuts them down from making a decision moving forward with, again, that, the 100 different right answers that'll move you forward, and then you optimize it from there. So you learn, you measure and track how people are using the solution, and then you adjust. And it's an ongoing, that doesn't stop, because your business requirements change, your user needs, the technology certainly continues to evolve and change. And so you have to, I hate going back into this word, it sounds just so 80s and dates me again, is that kind of that process of continual improvement. It's an operational excellence thing. Search is part of that overall infrastructure, operational infrastructure that you need to be continually looking at and tweaking and learning from and adjusting.
But it's very hard to find that one person.
Right.
And it sounds expensive, right? You're telling me I need an FTE for that?
But that's the point. What's the cost then? The opportunity lost by not innovating, by not finding that content. You can't capture as much information as we are in the modern era. It's like if you look, it's incredible to watch the hockey stick movement still that's happening around SharePoint, around collaboration platforms, that the growth of content and data that's being captured. We used to joke about big data being this kind of foreign concept. We all have big data problems. You can't not have one. I have one with my 2 external drives and about 6 gigs of music content, where I'm now buying music that I already own because I'm unable to find it. But it's still worth it though, because the vinyl versus the CD cover versus the digital product. But,
yeah. So see, now you're just justifying the fact that you're wasting money because you're not using metadata.
Of course I am, because Matt, my wife might see this at some point, and I have to back up that purchase. Yes. Right.
So you said fear was a big driver. I think ignorance is another driver. And again, it's that ignorance of the problem doesn't mean the problem doesn't exist. So a lot of times I'll come into an organization and we'll talk, and I'll ask them straight up, what can't you find? Like yesterday you searched for something, because we all do when we're at work. What could you not find? And if they honestly can't answer that question because I'm putting them on the spot, or maybe they're not deep technologists. Maybe their job is not strictly in a knowledge worker capacity. I'll ask them, I'll be back in 5 days or whatever. Over the course of the next 5 days, just keep a pad of paper next to your desk. I don't want you to use Notepad or anything like that. Let's stay low tech. Just Post-its and write down what it was you were searching for and what you couldn't find. And I'm constantly amazed at how little people can find of some of the most common things in an organization. And that's where we start. We start with that as a business driver. Sydney has a comment in the chat about a manager who believes that the only thing that anyone should see is the stuff that they're working on. And some organizations, I work with an organization that does a lot of M&A, and so there is a lot of very siloed information about what's going on. But we've built an information architecture that supports the way those teams work, so that search is still a solution for those groups. For more open organizations, then we just train them differently. But as long as there's a business driver and it's not a religious experience that I just fear disclosure, we make sure that the technology backs up the business.
Do you think the information architecture strategy should be the part of the search strategy, or the other way, or how they are related to each other?
They're absolutely hand in hand.
And I think even those, you could drive yourself crazy with layers of onions. What's the information strategy, or what's your technology strategy? I don't think that is useful for anybody. You just keep it practical and keep a couple of things in front of people about what are the kinds of questions they need to answer.
Yep. That sounds good. But the other concern I keep hearing from my customers is that strategy is something considered to be for long term, and it should be huge. I know you have already mentioned that it's obviously not always a long document, but it's definitely for a long-term thing. But usually organizations want to see the results immediately like this. So I really would like to know, what is your number one suggestion when you hear this question to improve first thing in search? Because there are so many things to touch, so many things to improve, to enhance, and those kind of things. So what is the number one?
I think you could just start with a short short list of a couple of scenarios, so like what kind of content do you need to store, and what angles do you need to get the content back. And if you can sort of answer both of those, then you have a strategy. It's a short one, can be a one-pager, a couple of pages. It doesn't have to take long, and that should probably cover scenarios for most of your desk workers. That's
I will argue for schizophrenia again, because I want everyone to be like me, which is you do need quick wins. People don't have intrinsic patience. They're just trying to get their jobs done. So there's a need for quick wins and a need for strategy, and it's all iterative. But what is the best quick win to look for depends on the situation. I usually advise people to find something targeted, right? Go look through this mess, find a group that's relatively similar, that's trying to answer relatively similar questions, and then you've got a really good shot at making that work well. It might be as simple as a query rule. It might be onboarding content that they need but isn't in the system, because the number one reason you can't find things is because it's not indexed.
Yeah, I try to also drive with some common business scenarios as well, like what are the forms your company uses? If I'm a brand new employee and I sit down, are there specific forms I have to complete? If so, let's create a query rule so that if I ever use that term form, it will generate a link to that location. As a consultant working for a consulting company, we use templates a lot. So the word template is magic in most of our search scenarios. If I type in, search strategy template, I've got a query rule that's going to throw me right into the template library and help me find those, or past projects, so that I can leverage responses to RFPs to past projects and use that for new work product. Simple things like that can make a huge difference. And like we've all said, this is an iterative process. I joke with folks. I'll tell them, they'll ask me, so when is the search project going to be done? Because they've got a Gantt chart that has begin dates and end dates. And I tell them, never. Because if you do it right, you're constantly improving, you're constantly drilling down, and hopefully your company is growing. And hopefully they're generating new kinds of content so that they can make more money. And so we have new query rules that are coming out as you generate new lines of business or new products, new technologies, new teams, new technology, new content sources. If you bring on a database of customers, well, it's going to take a little bit of work to get that database crawled. But once you do, you'll see a spike in the performance of your teams because you suddenly have a new bit of data available to them. And then I'll just close by saying, demonstrate it. You have to sell search. I never start a demo by talking about, here's how I upload a document and tag it with metadata. Blah. It's terrible. People don't want to do that. What they want to do is they want to find that thing they uploaded 10 minutes ago. And so I start off with search, and then I show them refiners. They learn about metadata through refinement. And once they're bought into, wow, that's great, I can pivot, I can slice and dice, I try to get somebody to say, I want that. And as soon as they say, I want that, then I show them how to upload the document, how simple it is to tag it, and then it's in search. And so those kinds of things can make a huge difference.
Yeah,
in the chat, oh, go ahead.
No, Jeff, go ahead.
I'm just calling out that Fred in the chat talked about creating a very simple taxonomy for documents that at an enterprise level. And that, I totally agree, goes a long way. Yeah. And just don't get stuck in trying to make it perfect, because perfect is the enemy of good here.
Well, and to add to that, I was just going to make the comment about like the whole concept that we had years ago of the best bets, of going and finding those and understanding what are those most common things. And you can actually see the trend across social and collaborative platforms where this ability, and in the Office 365 world, of pinning things that concept of bringing to the surface the most searched and most obvious things. I mean, I love refiners, a combination of pinning things that are commonly searched for, by project, by team site, whatever that is, wherever that community is, the common terms and being able to go and look for those things. The other side of it on the back end, though, is it's a very strategic thing, but it does impact the short-term search experience. And I just was commenting on this in a discussion happening on a LinkedIn group, is purging old content, cleaning up. That's also part of that continual improvement, and getting rid of the content that is not matching the search results. And I had commented about that user experience testing, about writing down. And Matt, I like that comment of jot down. Here's my expected result. I didn't get that. Here's what actually happened. Here's the number of steps that I had to go to get the right data, if I found it at all, and then provide that back to the team. We need to make this more transparent of what's not working, what's broken, what I'm not finding, because often we'll just kind of go back to our day and not provide that feedback, and so then nothing gets improved. But that's a very strategic thing to think operationally about, providing that feedback, cleaning up and organizing these things, and structuring our data in a way that put the things that are most searched for at the top or in the front.
Yeah, I think the cleaning part Christian says is very important. I'm actually doing a project now with one of the customers I spoke about, where we do use Office 365 groups for projects. And then when the project is done, we actually have an app in the SharePoint side saying, well, close group. And then you need to pick, well, which content do you want to keep? And that gets moved over to a read-only repository. And then we just nuke the group. And then we prioritize results from the archive results. So it's sort of an intermediate archiving solution. And that helps a lot, because it promotes you to, well, you have to delete the group. If the project is done, you need to delete the full thing.
That's fascinating, just because I've actually just kicked off a research project that I'm doing for Microsoft. I won't get into the pitch for the research project, anybody. But that example is a huge difference in what's happening as organizations go from this mentality of all on-prem, team site, persistent, we build a team site and it's there for years with all that content, to a pure cloud model where we are together for the life of a project. We finish it, close out everything, archive the content and the conversations, make it searchable, but everything else is gone because we don't need it. And then the management differences, the governance issues between those two things, and how you think about search with those two things could be very different.
Right, but purging requires me to have either someone who's going to say, yes, I deleted that and I was right when I deleted that, and it goes against my hoarding mentality. You know,
well, that's why you can save it down to your personal OneDrive.
If I can have a terabyte per OneDrive, why do I have to delete anything? I have 100 gigs of space in my Exchange inbox in Office 365. Isn't it safer to not ever delete anything?
That's also true. And also there is a comment from Martin in the Q&A window. And Martin says he has a customer who has operations in 50 countries and has around 700 million content items, 700 million. And Martin asks, how do you purge 700 million content items?
So by the way, I run into this all the time, not just because people are hoarders, but because in many cases the cost of keeping things is lower than the cost of throwing them away. You know, the ability to keep things and the ability to get stuff out of them makes it so that our hoarding instincts are reinforced.
But that's a technical cost, right? Not the operational cost, because when you start hoarding, it costs
right.
not to find stuff, right?
So the one simple technique is simply not to put that front and center. There's no reason that the everything tab should be where you go first. What should be front and center is the most important things tab. And the elements that you might want someday can be hidden off into a corner. It's very similar to when I make my kids clean their rooms and they want to hold on to that.
Dead goldfish.
Right, that, well, dead goldfish. Whatever, they want to hold on. This is something I found that my son wants to hold on to. It goes in a box in the basement. You can find it if you need to. It doesn't go front and center. So if you are afraid of hoarding, or if you want to hold on to things, it doesn't mean you have to put them front and center. There's one thing I wanted to point out earlier, especially along the theme of how long I've been doing this. There's a great book from 1994 called Great Information Disasters, which is 12 examples of how mistakes in information management and search caused misfortune, misery, political problems. I know Martin White often uses one of these where it really, the whole health service failed to do something because they couldn't find it. They couldn't find a policy, therefore they did the wrong process. So keeping things too long has a liability. We all know that from e-discovery and legal retention policies. Keeping things improperly and not knowing what you know has a big liability. And I come back to really simple technique. Take the everything tab and shove it off and call it the the catch-all tab, and take the authoritative content and put those into the primary result source.
I just want to say for the projects I was talking about where we close the project, then we actually set that site to not be indexed anymore. So that means the content they move is searchable, but everything you decide to leave behind, even if you don't delete the actual project, well, you can find it, but it's not searchable. It's in your basement. You need to know that it's there. You can't find it through search.
Yeah, and I think that's in answering Sydney's comment too around that, and from a project portfolio management, that's actually my background, first half of my career, is that, I mean, obviously, and there could be legal reasons for maintaining content, project data for a decade, after something closes. But there's a difference between purging the collaboration structure, the team site, the ability for people to go in there and interact around that, and then the artifacts, the content that came out of that. But you then have to have a strategy. And I kind of jokingly said, hoarding plus strategy is okay, but it is. I mean, because we don't know, how we might need to leverage that content, that output. But do you need to have all of that structure and that group and all those things which can bog down navigation and make the system more complex if you are properly archiving the results of that project and make them findable and through other active projects, especially having the links there. You need to have that history. Man, that's part of what Graph helps identify, but for Graph to work, you still have to go do that, have the metadata, the taxonomy, the strategy around how you're archiving that stuff.
So now I need to add to my full-time employees, I need to add a project archivist to go through a project that she never participated on, but now she's going to be the person who makes the decision as to what to keep. So now I've got 2 full-time employees, plus I'm going to pay the consultant for a search strategy. This is starting to add up.
No,
Yeah,
you need to put that on the people who create the content. They have to decide. Don't put it on the archiver, right? Make people liable.
And
start simple. Just get
automate that. Right.
Just get one person who's a focal point for the findability team, which of course is going to have people all over the place. Like you have one person that's focused on SEO of your website, and you have one person who's focused on your social network effectiveness. And you can take reasonable defaults. You can make content age out so that things that don't hit active topics don't show up. Or I did something like this with one of our clients, just with a straight feature of one of our products, to mark things if they are projects that mention a customer who is still an active customer. That once the customer is no longer active, then projects that mention it and don't mention other active products or customers can go into the archive.
And so, so Fred just posted a comment back to me, and of course I'm playing devil's advocate against Christian and Jeff, because one of the things we joked about when we started was that all of us agree that this stuff is important, and all of us have built careers around, some of us entire companies around the search and findability issue. But it is true that there are built-in capabilities like content types and retention policies. But my customers are reluctant, many customers are reluctant to rely on retention policies because that's automated deleting, right? Automated deleting. So you're telling me that these rules are just going to run and content's going to disappear? And I explained to them it's the same thing as when you give a file box to Iron Mountain and you put a destruction date on that. The only thing that can prevent that destruction is a legal hold. And it's the same thing in the automated systems. It's the fact that the customers are unwilling to invest the time to figure out what content they have and then get somebody in their legal department to say, yes, it's okay to delete that after 5 years or after 7 years or whenever. They need to put in that level of work. They need to spend some time to figure out what they have. I have another customer right now that wants to migrate to Office 365. But instead of migrating, what they've decided to do is just start using Office 365. Because day forward, they know that the project that starts on Monday is of a certain class and is going to start a certain way with a particular team. The project that they have documentation on from 5 years ago, they do not have enough people in the legal department to filter through terabytes of documents, archived documents. And so they'd rather just keep it where it is. Now, it sounds silly, but that's their approach right now because for the budget that they have and for the manpower that they have, that's what they can afford. So we're moving forward that way. We're tagging the content that they have. We're trying to give them the right way to do things. The other thing I've talked them into, they do have a SharePoint environment, but they also have a file share. We've set the file share to read-only. And the idea behind that is simply a day-forward approach. If somebody needs to grab a document off the file share and resurrect it, they can do that, but they have to bring it either into the on-prem SharePoint environment into a new team site, or they have to move it into Office 365. They have an information management policy for what stays on-prem and what goes to Office 365. But that's an approach. Is stop feeding the file share. I know the HR department doesn't like SharePoint. I know the HR department is comfortable with the file shares that they have, but we had to stop crawling the file shares because nobody's using security. They're using 27 folder levels down. It makes it hard to find if you're clicking and browsing, but man, SharePoint bubbles up the CEO's pay grade like that. It's just an Excel file sitting on their file server. So we had to shut that off. So these are really common problems. Everybody's got them. It's just a matter of finding, like we were saying, base hit strategies that can help us move forward.
Yeah, and the day forward strategy, Matt, that's very pragmatic. We have a lot of projects where then you take the stuff that's an archive, and you still need to be able to find stuff in it, but you tighten down the security on it so that only a few people can see it, and you make it indexed but not in the center that everybody goes to for everything. You can even use that as a way to do an inventory. I'll call it a semi-automatic inventory to see what you got, because there's a lot of dusty data out there.
Sure. Another approach that we used, because you mentioned it, Jeff, is on this particular file server, what we did was we just created a new folder at the root called Searchable. And everybody has access to move their stuff there. And all we said was, if you want to make your stuff, because we couldn't crawl the regular file share because there was no security on it, and we didn't want people finding the wrong thing. We just said, if you want to make your stuff searchable, we'll give you a folder and we'll move it over there, but it's still going to stay read-only. And then, like you said, we have an archive tab, and we use Michael's JavaScript that when you do a search on one tab, it shows you the results from the other tab and all of that fun stuff to the UI to make it easier for the end users to find stuff. But it's a challenge, and it comes back to company culture and a lot of fear and uncertainty and doom that it's associated with finding the CEO's pay scale.
Yes, talking about file shares. What about Office 365 and the cloud? Because it's a very hot topic these days. Everyone is moving to the cloud. New features are coming like a flow to us. And how to keep up with everything? How to help the users through this one? Because they know file shares, and this is kind of their safe place, so to speak. But now we are moving them to Office 365, moving content there, moving applications there, search there, and everything. So it needs a lot of education, and also we have to help the users with adoption. So my question is how to educate your users to have the cloud features in order to have not only good usability but also good findability of everything. I know Dev is the magical thing that does everything for you, but beyond that.
I think it's super hard, because when we were doing SharePoint on-prem, we had one search center and we could make sure every search in every place in SharePoint ended up on that page, so you had control over it and the way you rank results. Now you have so many different places where search results show up. I mean, you can configure Enterprise Search Center and do all the good rules, but it's hard getting people to land on that page. So what we, and well, I'm doing mostly 365 these days. Don't do much. We just let search be search. We don't set up an Enterprise Search Center at all, but we try to create vertical search centers for different kind of contents, and then tell people, okay, if you're looking for this kind of content, you need to go here and search, so they know, well, that's a search-based application. It's not a general search, because the general search in SharePoint Online or Office 365 is not that great because you can't see all the metadata, etc. It's a popularity search, so maybe that will get better in the future. But right now it won't cover search for different kind of content. That's the best approach we've found so far.
I think this has been a successful approach for a long time, independent of Office 365. Take specific things and let people go to those destination sites, or give them one URL that is one place to go. It's just different for you and me. And I'm even helping a lot of people stand up something outside of Office 365, like Azure Search, specifically to get at the control of what they need to do to get a great experience, and letting the suite-wide search or the Delve experience be what it is.
Yeah, but we licensed Delve, and isn't that the one search center to rule them all? Crickets?
Crickets, because it's just not true. And I love Delve, but there's never been one thing to rule them all.
Why is that, Jeff? You're the CTO of a organization that's and into cognitive search and all kinds of things. Is it just not smart, or is it just that hard to solve this problem?
The problem is hard, and it's getting harder because the amount of content, actually the technology is getting better, but the problem's getting harder in almost faster than the technology is getting better.
We keep moving the bar.
Yep, and moving the expectations up. The doing all things for all people with all content is the hardest thing you can possibly do. Doing the things that particular groups of people need with the content that they most often need to do can be done pretty effectively. So, and there is not one flavor of search. It's not, actually there's a whole academic long tree of, I joke that Inuits have 47 words for snow and I have that many words for search. But just the idea of, I found something that I know exists versus I'm exploring and I'm trying to answer a question where I don't know if there's an answer. That's two very different things.
Well, and Agnes had a great post a while back that talked about the difference between, I know what I'm looking for, so I'm going to search this way, and the people who are actually seeking something where they really don't have a solid idea of what it is they're ultimately hoping to find. So the difference between search and discovery. And I think that really underscores part of the problem. And that's why I do go through the exercise of, okay, you didn't find something. What were, in your own words, what were you looking for? And then what did you actually type in the box?
Yeah. So
those two things, I would never use the terms you used. Why did you search that way? You're doing it wrong. My favorite answer, my favorite answer to this is you're doing it wrong. And it can't be that way because the users do it the way the users do it.
Yep. So I use Delve 10, 20 times a day for awareness and a form of discovery about what people are doing around me. Mm-hmm. I use a search center equally as often if I want to refine things or if I want to go into more archival research that's more in depth. And those are three different things. Mm-hmm. So trying to ever expecting one thing to do everything is a fallacy any more than we use Google in the internet for everything. I use Amazon for shopping and Google for maps and Expedia for travel.
But I do think it is reasonable, though, to include higher level indexes as part of that centralized single place. So at least then you find out, where that other source is. And we do that. I mean, there was with blob storage, with these larger organizations where content are it's concentrated around certain projects or initiatives in different locations, where it just, as to your point, it doesn't make sense from a day-to-day what I'm working on to have them in this centralized location. But I use Delve the same way. For my little 5-person organization, to go and see instantly what things are working on, to discover other things that my directs are doing out there, and to go and find those assets very quickly because they're in active projects. But then once that's completed, moving that over to a location where it's archived, it's stored, it's still there, it's not lost, but maybe it's now more protections per different permissions that are put on that content and can be found, but then there's a little bit extra step to get to that content. So there's the difference between what is that active and then this passive content elsewhere, and being able to find that. And sometimes it's easy to go and say, hey, look, if you're looking for legal, then there is a legal library or system that you need to have the right permissions to, this other separate system. But I think I agree with everybody, or if nobody agrees with this, and I disagree with everyone, but of this idea of putting everything into one system, because very quickly that system, if you're even a moderate size organization, again, the massive amounts of content we're creating will stop performing. You'll stop finding things in that let's put everything together. You have to be much more segmented, organized, but you need to, that's where strategy comes up. Do it in a logical way where people can find what they need. That's the hard part of all this, is talking to people, having the conversations about how they're actually using it and how it needs to work.
Yeah, and Christian, just creating a list, like you said, if you have a primary destination or an intranet and you want to have people be aware of these other systems, you just have it be an item in the search, that put it in a list.
Yep.
Just like you want to fill out your time card, you're not going to index all possible things in the time card system. You just have one link.
You also mentioned, so in the context of Delve as well, there's this context of expertise search, though, and the ability to find experts around you. We haven't really touched on people search much, But in Office 365, one of the struggles that I have is how infrequently profiles are crawled, and that leads to, you know, I filled out my About Me on Monday, but I still can't search for myself based on those terms. Or when does my photo actually get updated? And those kinds of usability issues that I think Microsoft, it's still falling on deaf ears that if I update my photo, I want to see my new photo, not just in Exchange, but I want to see it in Skype, I want to see it in SharePoint, and I definitely want to see it in SharePoint Search. So,
I'm expecting Mikael to write a PowerShell script that files a service request to Microsoft. Ask them to recrawl your profiles every 3 hours.
Well, I know it's a huge problem in reindexing the user profiles, but not too many people actually bought my app which does that, right? They should. I'm not making a lot of money.
Okay, unfortunately we have to wrap up this conversation very soon, but I'm pretty sure that we have to find the next time when we can get together and continue this. But my very last question, no, there is one more. Anyway, my next question is, because it's really great to talk about all those cloud and everything. So what do you think search will look like in like 5 years from now? Matt, please.
Oh gosh, you know, I am so tired of having to answer the same questions. I'm hoping that it's just a little smarter. I just want it to be a little smarter. I want it to, you know, I'm not even asking for real auto classification. I'm just asking to not have to stand in front of my customers 7 years later and say, well, you still have to tag your content. You still have to search in these 5 different places to find the stuff you're looking for in Office 365. And yeah, I know you uploaded it an hour ago, but, and the thing you uploaded 10 minutes ago is in the index and showed up, but the thing that you uploaded an hour ago, it may take 24 hours. I'm hoping that they nail down just some of those common customer complaints, like I made fun of the user profile crawl. Just handle some of those common customer scenarios so that, or give us the tools to be able to say, I want to dial up, you know, I want to dial up the indexing frequency, or this site right here, this is a really important site to me. When somebody uploads it, I want to see that content as soon as it's practical. So I'm not asking to boil the ocean. I want it better.
Yeah, and I think they're actually working on it. Well, they're constantly working on it, but we never know when they're done, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe better communication. You know, if you look at the difference between SharePoint 2016 and SharePoint 2013, and you look at the feature comparison, there's one difference in that document as it pertains to search. They could do, I know they did a lot more than just one feature, you know, and so they could do a better job with that. Sorry, Mikael.
Yeah, and I think for search, I think there were like 2 or 3 things they said at Ignite last year they were going to deliver on. Nothing's happened in last Ignite on those 3 things, right? Synonyms, right? In SharePoint Online, nothing happened. Content enrichment, right? Nothing happened.
So, you know, we end up building, I work at a product company, and I regularly build things like synonym processing, and I know, Mikael, you also have a package that does that, or we provide content enrichment both in place and on things that come in, because it's such an important thing. And Matt, I will tell you that auto classification is not perfect, but simple auto classification helps a lot, and you know, I definitely recommend it.
Christian?
Hello again. I guess I should unmute there. Yeah, I was just thinking about this too. Of you know, when I think of the future of this, I'm a big proponent of the graph and the social interactions that we have. And there's a reason why the search giants continue to look at our social interactions, our personal and professional networks, and similarities in our search patterns around that to inform, and improve on the search results, is because those patterns are showing up. They are improving the quality of the search results. And so I think we'll see more of that within the enterprise. That means that every time you go and search for something and find it, open it up, the system will recognize that, no, he spent 30 seconds on that. That must not have been what he was looking for, and then spent 5 minutes on this other thing, and then, and then adjust based on that. And so I think those algorithms, those automations will continue to improve, and will track even more depth around the interactions that we have with that data. The difficulty is always to not bury the obscure but relevant, kind of long tail search results, still being able to make that, be able to surface that content. But then the other side of that is, I think, how we retrieve that content is going to dramatically change. There's been a lot of talk about the chat bots and the future of that, using natural language to go and find things, because a lot of times our search is limited by our inability to properly describe what it is that we're looking for. And that's where the social interactions help. That's where the automation of all this transactional social data of our, with our search results, all will help inform that, and the machine learning will improve all of that, and then better tools to find that. So I know that's a mouthful. There's a bunch of things there, but I mean, I really believe that's where it is going. It needs to be smarter on the back end as well as on the front end.
Very cool. Thank you very much. My very last question, and I promise this is really the very last one, Christian. My question is, are you coming to Ignite next week? And also, what are you preparing with?
Yes, I'll be there. Hopefully, have you not received the 20 spams that I've sent out about all the stuff that I'm doing at Ignite?
I did, but maybe not everyone.
Yeah, so I'm actually, I have one session that I am sharing the results of the hybrid SharePoint research that I did with Microsoft sponsoring at the beginning of the year. But I'm also one of the community reporters, so I'll be part of the Monday live show on stage at the beginning and throughout the day on camera doing different things with Microsoft and a number of MVPs that are participating. And also I'm running, I signed myself up for this, so I can blame myself. I'm running 5 tweet jams, one a day, around the different themes of Ignite. So you'll see me from 12:30 to 1:30 every day Eastern time running a tweet jam. And Monday is actually relevant to search. It's the data takeover there at Ignite, and we are doing a tweet jam on intelligent search and discovery. So it's very topical to this discussion. So I'll be there everywhere all week, not sleeping again.
Again, yes. Matt?
Nope. I'm going to be attending virtually.
Are you preparing something fun for next week?
I'm getting over my jet lag from this week. My self-imposed exile and jet lag, and I'm actually working on 2 more YouTube articles about managing search and how to. I'm doing a new extension to my 5 query rules presentation called 5 More Query Rules You Really Need to Know.
Amazing. Mikael.
Yes, I'm attending, and so this will be my first SharePoint conference as an attendee. I don't have any work, so I didn't get picked this year, but that's fine. I'm actually quite happy about it. There's no stress. So I'm looking to find all the after-hours parties. That's my plan.
That's a good plan. Jeff?
Very similar. This is the first year that I'm not speaking, and the first year that as a company we're not exhibiting. I have lots of meetings. We have a search-focused reception, and if you're a listener and interested in that, just ping me. And a a lot of cool activity, but it is low pressure because I have no sessions. I'll be sleeping virtually.
Good to see you. Lucky you. Thank you very much for sharing everything. I am also being at Ignite next week. I have a session about optimizing your content for search and discovery, actually. And also I do have a new thing that I am very happy to announce, that I'm going to launch a new online course for search in SharePoint and Office 365. Because I just really want to make the search word a little better and easier to deal with. So the pre-registering for this course is open from today, and you can get a free lesson if you sign up at the URL at searchexplained.com/jumpstart-search. Gentlemen, thank you very much again for joining this debate. Today, I don't think we had a really strong fight, so maybe next time just we have to choose the topics maybe better. I really appreciate your time, your insights, and everything, and talk to you next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Agnes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Bye.